Black Bean Sampson here. It's April 6, 2018. About 12:30. So this is about Michelle Obama. I mean, this is one of those people who just don't ever leave the spotlight. It's like they're so narcissistic, so vain that they just gotta be out there, just thinking that what they have to say is what the whole world needs to really hear. You had the 8 years to do that. You had the 8 years to send your message out. If nobody's not continuing it, obviously you had a pretty shitty message. If you don't have a majority of people rallying behind you with that message, obviously your message fucking sucks. So I guess I'm gonna paraphrase her. Just the other day, or was it yesterday or something? She came out saying that that her husband, Barack Obama, was like a good parent being in the White House. They were like the good parents while they were in the White House. And with Trump being in there, it's like right now you have it's all fun and dandy, and then you get to stay up all night or whatever she said. And so Trump's the bad parent. Well, you know, that's very insulting, actually. It's saying that all the adults of America are like kids. Like we're helpless little children who can't think for ourselves or act on ourselves or have agency over ourselves. This is the insanity of these people. To say that, they do not think at all what that really means. I mean, you saying that you're the good parent of the nation? What the hell are you trying to say here, Michelle Obama? Like, you know, for you had to say that to begin with, tells me that you're in defense. You're in defense because you're a shitty first woman. Your husband was a shitty president. I wish he wasn't. I fucking truly wish he wasn't. In fact, I voted for him the first time he ran. And I was actually living in the black community. I was dating a woman that was black. And I was really hoping that this black man, or he's actually half black, but he looks mostly black, but anyways, who cares about that? I was really hoping that he would be a great example for the black community to follow along, because if you look at the black community, it's not doing so well. It is not doing so well. And only, in fact, it's gotten worse since Obama. This is what's so irritating, too, when I hear about the left talk about suppression and that. It's like, you know, blacks were doing great up until the 60s, until you guys just, you know, like, handed over a whole bunch of money to them and essentially acted like you were going to lift them out of poverty. You only, in fact, just put them more in poverty and broke the nuclear families within the black community. And they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. All they want is the black community's vote to keep in power. They don't. These people who sit there and say blacks are the victims of suppressed and that, they don't talk about what it was like statistically for blacks before the 60s, like between the 30s and 60s. I mean, there was between the 30s and 60s. I think it even goes a little back further than that. There was an increase in marriage rates and education within the black community, and that's all disappeared now. Why did that disappear? And why doesn't these so-called humanitarian Democrats or leftists, why don't they ever talk about it? Why don't they ever talk about how black communities were doing better in marriage rates than white communities back before the 60s? Why don't they ever bring that up? Why don't they ever bring up the fact that crime rates within the black communities were very low before the 60s, and now they're like skyrocketed compared to a 13% population compared to a 60% population. They almost equate to about the same amount of crimes. That's horrendous. But yet nobody wants to talk about it. I would say the Democrats don't want to talk about why. Why don't you want to talk about what is actually causing the damage within the black community so you can actually lift them up from the problems? And this is why I have a huge problem with Barack Obama, because this guy had all the resources, all the knowledge, all the statistics, all the data, and yet zero word from it. But he wanted to play the victim card. He wanted to sit there and be like, Trayvon Martin was like could have looked like my son. I mean, that's just fucking insightful. That's inciting rage right there. That's all you're trying to do. I mean, that is some divisionary shit right there. I don't care what color you are. You are not supposed to identify with one side or another as a president. As a president, you are fucking multicolored, not fucking one color, asshole. Trump does not speak to just white people. He speaks to all races in this country. And in some ways, I think that's not so good, but, you know, I mean, the way I look at it, there is no country for white people, for Western European people, besides, it used to be Europe, it used to be Sweden, it used to be all those traditional European nations. But as you can tell, they're just getting destroyed right now. They're just getting destroyed. They're being guilted and shamed so bad that they don't even know what the fuck to do to themselves. If they were guilted to not wipe their ass, they wouldn't wipe their ass. That's how pathetic some of these people over there have become. And it's sad. And that's dripping over here now. Now, we've always been, since the early 1900s, started to become that so-called melting pot. But one of the things with the melting pot was assimilation, which has been just deteriorated like a motherfucker. And again, that's the whole Democratic thing. They essentially have had the issue of selling their votes to people who are wealthy now, who have gained riches, who have gained knowledge, education. So guess what? They have to import uneducated, unknowing, poor people to get votes now, because they can just sell free stuff to poor people, and poor people will eat it up. And it seems like the more of you not being from a Western European nation, you're more likely to go after large government or more welfare subsidies and stuff. Why that is, that's a whole different spiel. But the fact is, that's what it's come down to. And this is why the Democrats don't want a border. They want illegal immigrants to have amnesty so they can get those votes. This is why the Democrats are outraged at Trump putting on the Census Bureau if you're a citizen or not. Because the Democrats are worried about now, since you have to check that a lot of illegal immigrants are not going to vote. Or even immigrants that are here that aren't really technically citizens, but are voting anyways. And these really heavily Democratic ran states or cities. This isn't really a new phenomenon when it comes to Democrats pulling in illegal immigrants or immigrants to cast votes. They've been doing this for the last 100 years or so. And it seems only when a nation gains a certain amount of knowledge and wealth that when selling free stuff or selling votes for free stuff becomes exponentially harder, because everybody's wise enough to go, well, you know, taking that is actually more worse for my future than going out and working in the free market. So back to Michelle Obama on this free market. You know, the fact that they've had to force things onto people, like this whole school food stuff. Food, you know, instead of having food choice, they were like schools were being forced to do all these stupid ways of giving out food, and a lot of food was going to waste because kids weren't eating it. So instead of leaving it up to the free market to decide for schools themselves to feed their kids, like to know what their kids want and what they like, and how to serve that best to their children, to the kids at school. But rather doing that, they're going to force a dietary system, that's just so stupid. If the kids don't eat apples already, they're most likely not going to fucking eat apples. So you're going to have a lot of apples going to waste at schools if that's the case. And it actually is the case. Sadly, a lot of kids don't eat apples, which they should, but you know what? If you force it on them, you're sure the hell not going to eat it to begin with. It starts at the family, Michelle. It starts with the fucking family. Just like your own daughter, who is found at multiple parties smoking pot and shit, and probably doing multiple other things. So you want to talk about being good parents? Well, you can start with your own fucking kids, all right? All right? And stick your nose out of the fucking free market, because if you actually had something good to say, like I said, people will rally behind you. That would be part of the free market. You expressing an idea or an opinion that a whole bunch of people back, that is part of the free market, essentially. And obviously you and your husband that have essentially destroyed the black community in my eyes, and I believe in many other black people's eyes, and many other people's eyes. You guys have just tried to dismantle that and make up victimhood as being the way of the future. You guys have not benefited at all this country, beyond the fact that now we know your type of tactics. We understand now what the whole leftist agenda was really aiming for. It wasn't about removing the segregation or the divisionary that's in the nation. That wasn't that prominent until you became part of it. It wasn't that we needed our food system and our education changed just from one person trying to push a narrative on it. It wasn't the fact that whenever a young black person got shot and killed, that he reminded possibly what Obama could have had for his son. Like, you guys have not helped this nation in any bit, besides knowing what you guys have really tried to do. You guys have been essentially the middle of the center of the divisionary. That's what you guys, and now we can at least learn from that. If anything, that's probably what you benefited, what we benefited from, is that now we can document this and understand this and hopefully prevent it from ever happening again. And sadly, because of your guys' stupid regime that you guys had, your stupid system, I mean, it was just totally destructive to many communities, especially the poor communities. Most likely, I don't see another black person being voted in for a long time. You guys have destroyed that, and that you guys should be a fucking shame of yourselves. You weren't the example of what the black community should have aspired to. Not at all. I mean, the black community is rooting for you, but then again, there's a whole bunch of black people from the black community who's rooting for South Africans to attack white people who are farming in South Africa. So I mean, really, you like I said, you guys really have not benefited anything. You guys haven't. I mean, there's nothing from you guys that is essentially even worth following. And then now, recently, Michelle Obama comes out and talks about being a good parent. Well, again, why don't you go be a good parent to your kids? Because from what I can tell, your kids have some fucking issues. Just like a lot of other American kids. Maybe if you weren't out there showing your face in the fucking camera, being a vanity bitch, and actually be there for your kids instead of neglecting the shit out of them. Maybe your kids wouldn't be out partying and smoking pot and doing all that shit. It's a real damn shame that that you guys couldn't have done some more good for this nation, but rather you guys have done a lot of destructiveness.